very brief look at some Englishness, because I think that the first thing about the Richard Branson book, which I'm going to keep coming back to actually, because I think it's a phenomenon, and I think it aligns with Trump, it aligns with a whole lot of other things, inadvertently for Richard. I don't think Richard is necessarily that way inclined, but I just think that the whole idea of power and money and Elon Musk and a whole set of people now who have really effective power in the world is a matter of some conscience, in the sense that I think that we need to start saying, well, what exactly is the Gates conscience, if you like? What does Bezos need to do to be a citizen in the company of about, I don't know, 500 other people in the world who have that type of money? Maybe that's even an exaggeration. Maybe it's even less. But that's where we are, I think, is at a point of evaluation. And that's after Trump, I think. I think what's happened with Trump is that we've seen how someone's been able to come in with a huge amount of money, relatively. Not necessarily all his. There might be all sorts of problems with the bank and on and on and on. But he's got incredible financial clout one way or the other, by hook or by crook. And he is a leader of the free world. So I think that when we come to Richard Branson, it's a good idea to have a good look at what he's trying to tell us. On the TV these days, he's trying to tell us that it would be good to have more entrepreneurs, to give entrepreneurs a larger voice in all of this. So taking them at face value, if you give entrepreneurs a larger voice in the politics of the world, what are their political responsibilities? What do they have to do? What do we think that they should do? What are the shoulds? It's a very important question, which I think we've got to deal with now, because they're coming. Trump is part of a set. Bezos is part of a set. Gates is part of a set, Branson is part of a set, and on and on and on and on and on. The other thing is that Branson is the product, is a very good book. I read the book very thoroughly, actually. It starts to degenerate at the end, where it just becomes a kind of a diary. But it's a very good book in terms of Englishness, because it really shows what happens to somebody who comes out of that. You wouldn't call it LMC, you would call it middle class. You might call it upper middle class in some certain respects. Upper middle class in the sense of education and, I guess, breeding, if you want to use that awful word. And because he is connected. He's connected to this person and that person, and so his nephew went here, and his third cousin twice removed is quite important, that type of thing. But more importantly, it's to do with taking a kind of value system and really running counterpoint to that value system. So he comes through school, he's got some kind of situation, let's call it dyslexia, because I'm not sure that that's actually properly diagnosed, but that's just my reading of what his reading is of what his situation is. So it's something like that, and he becomes the editor of the journal, the person who cuts up a rug in the corner, the person who probably doesn't succeed in exams, but succeeds in rocking the boat at school. He then proceeds to work out how to control things. And whatever he does from there on in, whether it's controlling a little magazine here or a little record shop there or whatever, he seems to have a genius that actually, and not exactly in a Churchillian fashion, but it's pretty close, of taking over something and making sure that he's got, we say in New Zealand, dibs. He's got dibs on everything. He can call it in terms of the money, he can call it in terms of the action, he can call it in terms of the responsibility, and he does all this being a kind of a go-to man, but also the sort of go-to man that's actually part of the set, that's actually in the room with you all the time. So there's a certain genius about Richard Branson, no question, and I thoroughly recommend it. The other book, of course, is by Paul Moon, Campus Press book, and it's a very interesting book. It's Is There Still Honey for Tea? and it's just it's coming out of who do you think you're fooling, Mr. Hitler? It's coming out of that type of, as it were, music hall stroke television, and Sergeant what's his name, and the Home Guard, and so on and so on. It's very good. It's a very interesting book. There's some kind of issue of it with respect to property rights of photos. So we're not actually selling, Campus Press is not actually selling this book. We're actually giving it away. And that sounds very Richard Branson-y. But I can't see that we've actually got a catch. I mean, it'd be nice if we did have a catch. I mean, maybe we could sell it with soap or something. I don't know. Buy a bar of soap and get a book free. I don't know. I mean, it's just silly. But I back Paul Moon on it because I just think that it's a bit like his work with Augustus Earle, that it's a sort of thing, or on South Auckland or whatever, some of these books, Brahms, some of these books that I've backed over the years, that sooner or later it will generate more books which will make sense either financially or in other ways. This book makes absolutely no sense financially. We cannot sell this book. So, is there still Hunting for Tea by Paul Moon? A story of Dad's army, and if you have time, read it. But I think that it captures a certain Englishness which I'm talking about with respect to Branson, and I'm not sure that we've quite articulated that. I think we've got a very good handle on how snobbery and class values work in England. We've got extremely good handles on the royals, but I'm not sure that we've got that Thatcherite, if you like, that Thatcherite thing of the grocer's daughter coming through. Branson's not quite a grocer's daughter, he's a lawyer's son, but he's definitely got that running the grocery shop down. He's got it down. He's got it in the tips of his fingers. And as I said earlier, that's interesting too, because he's at the edge of the English revolution, if you like, of the 60s, because to some extent it was English led. It was led out of Carmody Street, where sure enough Richard Branson was in action. It's got all to do with sound and music, and sure enough there was Richard Branson running his Virgin Records. And yeah, there's that other thing that I've been talking about in recent broadcasts, just talking about the road and travel, and as it were the bubble of movement. Where you're always clocking into a hotel, or you're always clocking out of a hotel, or you're seeing how much room you've got for your knees in a plane, or whatever. It's very, very much to do with movement and movement through technology. So, because as I said, as I mentioned in an earlier broadcast, a lot of the book, Branson's book, is about ballooning and that type of thing. So you're Peter Cleve here, great to be broadcasting out. Thoroughly recommend both of these books, and of course you can't buy the Paul Moon book. How are you going to get it? That's a mystery to me, and I'm the publisher.